Hey loves, welcome back to my channel. For those of you that are brand new, I'm Candace and this is Tim. So we're gonna do actually a Q&A video. I asked for some questions from you guys last week, and so we did get about 10 questions. We're gonna be cooking dinner. We got this HelloFresh dinner we're gonna cook, and this video is not sponsored, but we're gonna be cooking dinner, and Tim's actually gonna be cooking. And so while he's cooking and prepping dinner, I'm gonna be asking the questions and we'll answer them. So that's what we're gonna do today. I'm gonna get my phone. But just so you guys know what we're making.
Hecky, watch out, bud.
We're making these black bean tostada thingies, black bean and corn tostada. Okay, so question number one is, how are we adjusting to being parents? I think we are adjusting pretty well. It's definitely like any other thing. You have to get used to it, and you have to figure out what you're doing and figure out the best way to go about it. But overall, now she's 5 months, and I think we have adjusted pretty well, just to adjusting to having a new person in our household, adjusting to taking care of another person, to feeding and clothing and everything. So for the most part, I think it's always going to be stuff that you need to learn, but I think that we're doing pretty good. Next question we got is, how did we get on 9 months with Courtney Cox?
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I don't even know that. I don't even know the answer.
So I was contacted on Instagram by...
I got on 9 months because Candace told me we were going to be on the show.
So the question should have been, how did I get on 9 months? And then I just brought him along.
Yeah, I was kind of like the hype man that got brought along for the ride.
So I got contacted on Instagram by a producer, and at first I was skeptical because I'm like, why is a producer from a TV show contacting me on Instagram? So she
Which we thought was shady.
Yeah, she contacted me. I gave her my number. We chatted, and I did realize that it was actually really a show that they were casting for. And this was before I was pregnant. They were kind of trying to follow all different types of pregnancy journeys, and so that's how we got on there. So after I talked to the lady, then we had an interview, and I told Tim about it. We had a phone interview and we had a video interview, and we got chosen, and the rest is history. Next question is, what is the hardest thing about motherhood and fatherhood? I think the hardest thing about motherhood is that it's constantly changing. So in the beginning, I would have said the hardest thing was breastfeeding or sleep deprivation, but now, you know, everything's just constantly changing and evolving, and so it's just kind of keeping up with her as she's doing different things, and every stage brings new challenges. And then I think the hardest part is just taking care of another human being and making sure that they're not too hot or not too cold, and they're not you know, not too hungry. You okay over there?
Yeah.
That's a little scary. Why are you shopping so fast? Because you think that you don't chop your finger off, it's gonna be on recording.
I'm Dave Ramsey in this boy.
Next thing you know, I should insert an ambulance here, like, going to the hospital.
You gonna believe him?
Look. So what's the hardest thing about fatherhood?
Hardest thing about fatherhood for me is balance. Like for me, dealing with working, and then dealing with having a daughter, a child, rather, it doesn't matter the sex, but for me, just balance. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes I'm like, oh, I hear my daughter crying, and because I work from home, I feel like I need to go and deal with that situation where I could be dealing with the work situation. Once I hear her crying, that goes out the window for me sometimes.
So just trying to figure out a balance.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard, but I do appreciate the fact that you challenge me and say, I'll come upstairs, and she's like, you don't know I got her. Right. I got your daughter, dude. You need to be downstairs. Go back downstairs. Go work.
Next question is, do we want more kids, and do we have to do another IVF cycle or retrieval in order to have more kids? So for anyone who's been following our journey for any amount of time, you already know that we have 2 more frozen embryos, so we would not have to do another IVF cycle. Gratefully, we have 2 more embryos that we could just go and transfer, and we do plan to try both of those embryos, and hopefully we could give Victory a sibling or 2 by the time our journey is over. So I think that's pretty much answer the question, right?
I'm with that.
We do want more kids because we have 2 more frozen embryos. And even if we didn't, I don't think either of us wants Victory to be an only child. So,
Right.
So yeah, definitely. Next question is, how do we know if we should do IVF as Christians? That's a really good question.
That's kind of a hard one.
You want to start or you want me to do it?
Yeah, let me start. Hold
Okay.
on. You gotta read number 3.
Read number 3.
Yeah, read number 3 because I need a moment to gather my thoughts. But you have to pray and you have to figure out what's best for your family, because I struggle with that. And for me, I think it took a little bit longer for me to accept IVF as an alternative, because I felt like if in the Bible it said that I've seen so many miracles in the Bible that God just did it, then for me it was just like, well, he's just gonna do it. That whatever it is that you're believing for, that God will provide for it, and you can't dictate the way that he will provide for it, right?
Right.
You can't.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was going to say is, for us as Christians, we always say, you know, we're believing God for things to happen. We know it'll happen when it's supposed to. It'll happen in God's timing and whatever. But I think sometimes we use that and we don't. We hinder ourselves because, yeah, God is a God that can work miracles, but sometimes he's waiting for us to take that step. So that's just like if you're sick, or if you found out that you had some type of ailment or disease, you wouldn't just sit most of the time and say, well, I'm just going to sit here and let God heal me. You would go to the doctor and allow the doctor to be the avenue that God uses to heal you. And so I believe that's how it is with IVF. And some Christians don't believe in doing IVF or any of that, and I think that that's perfectly fine. I think you have to do what's best for your family, but for us, we felt like we had done all that we can. We had faith, and we felt that we believed that God was telling us to go to the next step, and that he would use a doctor, he would use science and technology to bring, you know, our promise that he has promised us to fruition. So the next question is, why did we move to Arizona? So we are actually from Michigan. We moved to Arizona in 2016. I was suffering from seasonal affective disorder, which is also known as SAD, and it's pretty much when the seasons change, like from fall to winter until spring, you just get a little bit sadder and your mood changes a lot. And so I was really battling that a lot back in Michigan and just needing a change and needing something new and something different. And so that's why I wanted to move away. And Tim may have a different reason for wanting to move.
So for me, moving was based off of looking at what was best for my family, and knowing that Candace was dealing with her issues there with the seasons changing. You know, I kind of just wanted to get us to a spot where, after looking at it and researching it, because when she first brought it to me, I was kind of like, well, look, we were born and raised in Michigan, so we already know about the seasons changing, so it shouldn't necessarily be a problem. But then me trying to look at it from her perspective, I was like, okay, well, baby, you know what? If this really a thing, and after doing research, then you know what? Let's look at the.
Yeah, and it's actually a real thing.
It is.
It's
really
a form of depression.
And if we retired today, where would a place be that we retired to?
Right. Yeah.
You know?
And we chose 5 different states, and ultimately Arizona was the one that we picked to move to. We chose 5 states to visit, and then we chose Arizona to move to. So. All right. So the next question is, how much have we spent so far on our IVF journey?
Don't even tell me. Do you know the number?
Yeah.
You look.
Well, if you think about it, if you think over 10 years and you think about me having a major surgery, him having a surgery, and you think about all the supplements we've taken, you think about acupuncture and all the healthy food, I mean everything, if you combine it, is well over $100,000. We both did IUIs, we did 2 rounds of IVF, we did genetic testing with the IVF, I did additional testing with the IVF, so it was definitely well over $100,000. And I might do a video, I think, because I get this question a lot, and I think I'll do a video just to talk about how we pay for our IVF, because we're not rich. We don't just have $100,000 just in the account and we can just grab real quick and pay. Like it, you know, so it was a lot of sacrifice, and so yeah, so well over $100,000 is what we've spent on our journey just to try to have a baby. Yes.
She know.
Okay, so the last question is, how do we stay encouraged on our journey?
I'll go first, and then you can end it. How I stayed encouraged was pretty much my faith and knowing that God was in control of all things, right? I mean, that's so simple and it's so hard to accept. Sometimes people don't want to accept it, but literally, like, we're not in control of anything that happens. Like, I believe that, well, we are based off of what we put out there, but because you reap what you sow. But I believe that, you know, if God is for me, then, you know, nothing else really matters. And then truthfully, you know, having my wife by my side and having, you know, the opportunity to go through this with my wife, and then just knowing that, you know, I don't know the outcome, but I know that I have somebody that supports me and is gonna be with me. For me, that was the biggest thing. I already knew God had it, but then in the natural, that was the spiritual. But then in the natural, just knowing that I had you with me, for me was everything I needed.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think for me, it's support, having a good support system. So you have days where you just feel defeated and you feel like the journey will never end. And so in those days, you need someone that's going to build you up and push you and say, you know, and remind you of God's promises and everything. And so I think that was the number one thing. Of course, my faith, being able to lean on and lean in and continue to trust God and know that his promises are true. And then on the day, there were seasons in my life where I was so angry that I didn't even want to acknowledge God, or I didn't want to read my Bible, or I didn't want to pray. And that's just the journey. That's just how it is. You get angry, you get frustrated. And so in those seasons, I think it's important to have support systems that are going to continue to encourage you in the word, and that's going to continue to remind you of God's promises and to kind of help you out of that season. And I think that's it, really. So my faith and just my support system. And I think I knew that it was going to happen. I didn't know how. I didn't know we would have to do IVF, but I thought it would happen naturally, of course, like most of us. But I think knowing that God has promised that we be fruitful and multiply, that we have children. So knowing the promise and just not quite knowing how to get there, I think that's what, tell them, baby. I think that's what helped me stay encouraged, is just knowing that God would do it, even if I didn't know how or when. And that kept me kind of going forward on the journey. So I think that's really it. That's all the questions that we got. Yeah, that's all the questions we got. So I hope you guys, Tim just abandoned our dinner. All we got is some tomatoes and some cilantro in a hot oven.
Hot oven. I got some jalapenos chopped up.
I can't even eat jalapenos. So hope you guys enjoyed this video and getting to know us a little bit better. We'll do another Q&A later. It's been like a year since we did our last Q&A. So you have anything else you want to say?
I do not at this point.
All right. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please be sure to hit that subscribe button down below and join our little family. And I hope you guys have an amazing week, and I'll be back next time with another video.